First tonight, the police say they're ready to respond in force in Oldham if there's a repeat of the trouble that scarred the town so badly at the weekend. The BBC's Richard Wells is there. Richard, earlier this evening we saw a number of police vans being deployed around the town. How many police do you reckon are out?
Greater Manchester Police have promised throughout the day a large number of police officers in Oldham tonight to try to prevent a third night of disturbances. They made that promise, they have delivered that promise, but the nature of the police operation appears to have changed. What you saw last night were high-profile street patrols in sensitive areas, trying to stamp out any problems that arose. And to some extent, it was successful. But what you have tonight is those street patrols have disappeared, and instead, like the holding area you see behind me, the police are being kept there in riot gear, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice should reports come through of any trouble. The change of tactics followed a meeting and a recommendation made by Asian community leaders when they met police officers and council officials this afternoon. They said that the presence of police officers on the streets was intimidatory. They wanted to reduce tension. They recommended the police remove them. The police appear to have responded on the streets, but here behind me, they're ready to move should there be any repeat.
But I understand,
so far, it appears to have worked.
I understand that the local people did not want the police in riot gear because they felt that would be inflammatory, but in fact the police are in riot gear.
They are in riot gear. They have, over the past 2 nights, had petrol bombs thrown at them. They've had bricks, stones and bottles thrown at them. Several officers have been injured. What senior officers are saying is that they're not going to take any risks with their own officers in a volatile situation.
Richard Wells, thank you very much indeed. One reason cited for the violence was an attack on Asian houses and cars by 10 white men after an argument between 2 teenagers, 1 white, 1 Asian. After that, Oldham erupted in a fury of firebombs and attacks. The police lay much of the blame for the rioting at the door of far-right activists who've targeted the town. But inhabitants who've watched in fear as racial tension has escalated over the past weeks believe the police themselves have not been even-handed. Peter Marshall is in Oldham.
It's a crisis in Oldham, and we feel people are threatened, people living in fear, and I think ordinary person on the street feels that, you know, what's happening to us, you see.
The aftermath of Oldham's weekend of rioting, and Basit Shah, who tries to improve race relations, is in despair.
Minimum of maybe 10 taxi drivers or 15 taxi drivers have been assaulted, abused in one way or the other, whether it's physical or whether it's verbal.
These are Asian taxi drivers, you say?
Asian taxi drivers, that's right.
And attacked because they're Asian? Or because they've got money?
Well, it's attacked because, I mean, the most of it is because they are Asian, you see.
This isn't a wealthy area, and those at the bottom of the economic heap are Asians, children and grandchildren of Pakistanis and Bangladeshis, wooed 3 and 4 decades back by a cotton industry which promptly collapsed. Today, they're both angry and suspicious of the police and of outsiders they fear will do them down.
For the BBC, well, we're interviewing the leaders, but I mean for the BBC, what's the point of interviewing?
Because I want to know what you really think about what's happening.
You know what's happening. It doesn't make it. Media's giving everything against us.
Well, speak to the media then, and speak to us and tell us what the problem is. Later, we found 2 boys who did want to talk.
Some white youths attacked an Asian family, and the police were just there, stood there watching. So obviously we're going to retaliate.
Stood there watching. I think that's not exactly true, is it?
No, it is true.
No, a lot of it was. I mean, they weren't just standing there like this, right? Go do it. But
do you not think though that the reactions should stop now?
No, everything should stop. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, whatever colour you are. You know what I mean? That's irrelevant. But what it is, the police just trying to blame it on the Asians. They're just building it up and they're giving us a bad name, really. That's what it is.
The Asian youth's anger was stoked by police reports earlier this year that most racist attacks in this area, 62%, were by Asians against whites. The Asian youth say that's a travesty and suggest the police don't take real racist attacks seriously. And then, over the past 2 days, they behaved in a way which fits exactly the police caricature, with extreme violence. The rioting came at a time racist parties had singled out Oldham as fertile territory for campaigning.
As the window went through, My wife come running down saying the concert room curtains are on fire.
This publican was one of many whose businesses were petrol bombed. He says he's at a loss to know why.
I don't know. I don't know why they're targeting any pub in this area, because in this area, most pubs, or all pubs, are used by Asians as well.
You have Asians drinking in here?
We have Asians drinking in here from about 45 years of age upwards, and a lot of them are very, very good friends of mine. I would say, out of the 10 of them, 9 of them will do me a favour before do me any harm.
At the local newspaper, again a target for petrol bombs, there's similar bewilderment.
Pretty upset. I mean, we're a long-standing member of the Oldham community. The paper's been published in Oldham since 1854. My family have been involved in it since about 1857. So we've been here a long time, and this is the first time that anybody has actually chosen this way to complain about how they've been treated. We don't pick and choose which stories we report and which stories we don't report. It would be suicide for any local newspaper to pick and choose communities or alienate any one particular community. I mean, we just don't do that. We're not aiming to do that. Anybody's welcome to come in here and tell us what's happening, but unless we do know what's happening, unless people tell us, or unless attacks on Asians are reported to the police, we can't find out about them.
There are then huge gulfs here between whites and Asians, Asian elders and Asian youth, and between the youth and the police. Tonight there was a long meeting between the various groups, and then the barest glimmer of hope that together this can be sorted.
That's the starting point today, you see, where the communities have actually raised their issues, where the communities have actually expressed their feelings and mentioned that, you know, that what we need to do in Oldham is to have more close dialogues between the police and the young people of Oldham.
The alternative doesn't bear thinking about.
Peter Marshall in Oldham, and I'm joined now from Oldham by Ashid Ali, who's the chairman of the Bangladeshi Youth Association, from Manchester by Assistant Chief Constable Alan Green, and here in the studio by Aki Nawaz, who is an activist and musician. First of all, a couple of questions for you, Alan Green. Straightforwardly in that film, the mood seems to be that the police are all too eager to blame Asians for trouble.
Well, I don't accept that, and I don't think there's anything to justify that comment. Clearly there are very complex problems involved throughout the whole of this issue. We're certainly not blaming Asian youths for all of this trouble. I can state that categorically.
But when the police issued figures to say that 62% of attacks were Asian on white, they brought these figures out in February, was that wise? Because in fact a lot of Asians would say they don't even bother reporting incidents to the police.
And indeed that is a fact, that many incidents aren't reported, but we do record racist incidents. We've made great efforts to improve the recording and provide people with the opportunity to record incidents. We've actually set up a racist incident crime unit on the Oldham division, set up by the divisional commander there, and we encourage everyone to report racism and racist incidents.
But in fact, the Greater Manchester Police set up its racial crimes unit as late as last year. That was very late, wasn't it?
Well, I think what we have to say is that this was the Oldham division that set that up, and I think that was a positive thing to do.
But yet there has been a tradition of racial tension in Oldham, so perhaps do you think the police should have been more proactive?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that we have been proactive. The divisional commander in Oldham has many contacts throughout the whole of the community. We work very closely with various community leaders. We have appointed a community development officer a number of years ago who works very closely with local people. We have done a lot in the past, but of course we recognise that out of the events of this weekend we have a long way to go.
Well, Alan Green, we'll come back to you in a moment, but I now want to bring in Ashid Ali from the Bangladeshi Youth Movement. Do Asian young people have a voice? Who do you actually speak for in the community?
Asian youth do actually have a voice. We actually represent the Asian youth. But if I can just very quickly touch on the actual statistics, which is partly responsible for what has gone on in Oldham, is first of all, 62% of racial incidents, we're not talking racial assault, we're saying racial incidents have been on white people by Asians. But what we must understand is that these figures are not figures produced by the police. These were figures collected by the various different agencies, passed on to the police, and we don't know how accurate these figures are. Furthermore, there is a vast reporting from the ethnic minority communities, and if you look at the number of violent incidents, Superintendent Eric Hewitt actually said it is about 50-50.
What in your view?
Can I finish off, Kirsty?
You've got a number of statistics here, and I want to just pick you up on a couple of things. What, in your view, has led to the tinderbox at the weekend? What has sparked off this trouble at the weekend?
Right. Over the last few weeks, we've had large number of elements from outside Oldham who've come into Oldham, the right-wing extremist groups who've come into Oldham deliberately wanting to cause trouble, to have a march, whilst clearly there was a ban on any political marches by Home Secretary Jack Straw, and even on the 5th of May there was about 500 outsiders who came into Oldham wanting to cause trouble. Over the last 5 weeks, on Saturdays, Asian population have avoided the town centre so that they actually have no potential disturbance with these groups.
So your view is it was an explosion waiting to happen, and it just happened this weekend?
Yes. In simple terms, yes, this is the case. But what we have to understand is the incident did not take place in the town centre. It was white youths who came into predominantly Asian area, who went on a rampage in breaking windows and assaulting and abusing Asian population.
Let me bring in Aki Nawaz now. In your view, looking at this as you do from here in London, though you are from Bradford, you've heard Ashid Ali saying that it was primarily outsiders coming in. That is also the analysis of the police. Is it your analysis?
I think it's pretty obvious from all the press and the media that that is what has happened. A similar case happened in Bradford a few weeks ago. And I think that generally a lot of the extreme right-wing groups seem to find Asian people as an easy target, because we have this kind of stereotypical image that we're passive and, you know, we're controlled by our parents and we won't fight back and things like this. But, you know, times have changed. That was a, you know, ideology what existed 20, 30 years ago. We will now, and I think that people in Oldham, the young people, were totally justified in defending their community. Just, you know, as I encourage all of them, because unless the police react in a very, very quick way to stop people becoming victims, because the problem is that we're becoming the victims not only of physical assaults, but then also we're becoming victims of being arrested by the police for defending ourselves.
Well, you seem to be saying there that if other people don't defend you, you have to go out and defend yourselves.
Well, you know, if you're a woman and you're getting raped and nobody's going to stop you, then you have to defend yourself.
The police authority issued a reward for information leading to the apprehension of the people supposedly, allegedly, who assaulted Walter Chamberlain, the elderly veteran. It was an award of £10,000. Is that the kind of reward that is generally in the community?
Well, firstly, I mean, the elderly gentleman, which is really unfortunate, and I think a lot of Asian people within the Oldham community will actually say it was very unfortunate. It wasn't a racist thing. Even the family admitted it wasn't racist. But, you know, there was a funeral yesterday in the East End where somebody had been stabbed 12 times by 4 white youths. There was no reward. You know, there just seems to be a really, you know, there just seem really unjustified kind of actions going on. And
Ashid Ali, just picking up very briefly what Aki Nawaz says, that if people, the younger generations in the Asian community do not feel that they are either being heard, being respected, or indeed being defended, it is inevitable that they will come out on the streets fighting.
Well, the Asian youths in Oldham, first of all, we need to establish that these are British Asian youths who are actually, most of them were born in this country, went to the primary and secondary schools. They have cooperated with the police and they have listened to the community leaders and youth representatives over the last few weeks. And when the trouble was actually incited in their area, they responded because they clearly felt that the police at that moment in time did not defend their properties and their areas and their women and children. So they responded and they actually had the support from the elder community who would otherwise, under normal circumstances, would turn around and condemn these violences, and they would do whatever they can to control the youth.
Right, let me bring in Alan Green. Let me bring in Alan Green.
Boiling up, and
I'm afraid I have to. We're very short of time.
Was the final straw.
Well, we're very short. I have to bring Alan Green. Do you accept in any way that the attitude that the police has, perhaps, to the younger Asian community is not sufficiently open, is not sufficiently welcoming to their worries, their fears, their complaints?
Well, clearly the perception is there, and I think if there's a perception, then that is a cause of concern, and it's something that we've discussed only this evening in a meeting with the local council, with the leader of the council, the chief executive, and a number of representatives from the community. And we acknowledge that there is a need to reach out more to the young people. I would urge Ashid Ali to be a part of that and to come along and speak with me or with Eric Hewitt in Oldham. And let's talk about these things. But throwing petrol bombs isn't going to help anyone. And
but also having a heavier hand. I mean, what members of the Asian community say is they can't walk up the streets because there's skinheads around, and that perhaps some of the emphasis in your policing might be in that regard.
Well, I'm not sure that has been said this evening. I'm not sure where you're quoting that from. What I'm saying is that by young people going out on the streets and throwing petrol bombs isn't going to solve anything. We need to speak, and I would urge, as I've said, Ashid Ali and people like him who represent the young people in Oldham to come forward and let's enter into that dialogue.
Briefly, do you accept you don't have young people's confidence in Oldham?
No, I don't accept that at all. I think there are sections of the young people in Oldham who clearly we need to have closer contacts with, but I don't accept that we don't have the confidence. We've got the confidence of the vast majority of the public from all sides of the community in Oldham. What we have to strive to do now is to try and make that 100%.
Gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed.